Good afternoon. My name is Andy McCarthy, and it's my honor to chair the Benghazi Accountability Coalition. We're here today because America left its heroes behind. It has been 2 years since the Benghazi massacre of September 11th, 2012, an act of war in which America's ambassador to Libya and 3 other brave Americans were murdered in a terrorist attack. An act of war carried out by the same jihadist movement that took our nation to war on September 11th, 2001. 2 years is too long, way too long, for there still to be so many unanswered questions. 2 years is too long for there still to be no accountability. The day before the September 11, 2012 Benghazi terrorist attack, Al-Qaeda-tied terrorists were threatening to attack American embassies. The day after Al-Qaeda terrorists murdered our ambassador to Libya and 3 other brave Americans, President Obama went to a Vegas fundraiser and claimed to have put Al-Qaeda on the path to defeat. In between, the commander-in-chief took no meaningful action to rescue Americans under siege. And after 2 years, we still have no explanation of where he was and what he was doing during the minutes and hours when they were fighting for their lives. That cannot stand, and this group of American citizens will not rest until we have accountability. It's my honor to present you a number of speakers today who are members of our coalition, and it's particularly an honor to begin by introducing Charles Woods, the father of Navy SEAL Ty Woods, who was killed in the Benghazi massacre. Charles?
Well, I thank you for that. And I would rather actually not be here. I would rather that my son was still alive. As you know, it was 2 years ago that the tragedy in Benghazi, that was preventable, happened. We still don't know that many answers. One of the questions that as a father continues to haunt me is why was there no attempt at rescue? As you know, for 20 years, Ty was a Navy SEAL. And then during those 20 years, he was rescued many, many times. That has always been the policy of the U.S. military, that when a mission is compromised, the warriors, they know that they will be extracted. During all of the hours that this attack happened, there was no attempt whatsoever made to rescue. In fact, last week we found out by the testimony of the 3 warriors that actually fought side by side with my son Ty Woods, that within 5 minutes of receiving the call for help, while they could hear the battle going on a mile away, they were thumbs up, they were ready to go. But they were told, quote unquote, stand down, you have to wait. 3 times they protested, and they said, we're losing the initiative, we have to go now. Finally, after about a half hour, they got the final call when the embassy said, they're setting fire to our buildings. We are going to die if you do not come right now. Ty and the others, being the honorable warriors that they are and were, disobeyed their direct orders and went to rescue. Now they knew that that was the end of their career and possibly the end of their life, because if they were not going to rescue the 30-some people at the embassy, if something went wrong, they were not going to be rescued as well. So we still do not have the answers that we need, the truthful answers that we need as to why these American heroes were left to die. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. The Woods family is here with us today, and they do deserve answers. The American people deserve answers. I'd now like to present the Congressman from the great state of Texas, Louis Gohmert.
It's an honor to be here with these friends, but it's even more of an honor to think about the heroics of those who gave their lives on the front lines in what was not supposed to be a battle area, but an area that apparently had requested additional security and help that didn't come before the attack. It didn't come during the calls and pleas, even from Chris Stevens himself, we're under attack. Nothing about a video. They were under attack. Never before has this country heard the cry of a United States ambassador that I'm under attack, we are under attack, and then started circling the wagons, not to go help, not to go try to save those who are under attack immediately, but to try to figure out how we're going to save this election that's coming up in only a matter of weeks. Now, some are tempted to ask, what difference at this point does it make? And the answer should come swift and clear anytime it's asked, because until we know what happened, we can't avoid the same mistakes in the future. Now, I'm standing here with some of America's greatest personalities, friends. I'm also standing here, one of those include General Jerry Boykin. Now, the failed rescue attempt he was sent on was back at a time when even when hostages are held deep inside enemy territory, even one of the weakest presidents, some say the weakest, but in our American history, at least made an effort to go save those who were hostages. In this case, nobody was sent, and they have continued to cover up what exactly happened. When you hear from intelligence officers that they have been scared by the administration and can't talk about what happened there, when you hear, as I have, from the mother of a military member who said he's looking forward to when he's out of the military so he can talk to you about what he was doing there in Libya on 9/11, 2012. So I want to take you back just for a moment to 40 years ago. 40 years ago, people were beginning to learn the lesson in this country that if something bad happens, then it's even worse when you cover it up. Watergate happened, and for decades, people learned the lesson. You don't try to cover up. It gets worse when you cover up. But now, 40 years later, this administration is following the example that was learned during the Clinton years, that if you keep refusing to provide documents, keep refusing to give answers, then eventually you can get to the point where you say, oh, that's old news. And the mainstream media can sometimes be compliant, say, oh, well, it is old news. Well, it's not old news because we still don't have the answers. So we need to keep having this remembrance every year until we get answers so that other families will not be like the Woods, the Dohertys, the Stevens, the Smiths families. They won't have to beg to find out what happened to their loved one. And some of you have seen the 13-hour presentation. David Ubben became a friend during one of my visits out at Walter Reed. It wasn't mentioned in the show, but I think it is absolutely despicable by this administration that after about 20 hours, they send a plane. It's not a military plane. It's not a C-130 or one where they can take a gurney up in there. No, they get some private, wealthy man to send his little private jet. You have a man who has lost most of his right leg, has been described as just hanging on by a thread. They strap him to a gurney. He has no morphine. And they have to keep turning him every which way to try to get him into the small door of that little private jet. And as he told me, the pain was the worst of the whole ordeal because they sent a little bitty plane. Now, David Ubben is a hero as well, but we need answers. Why couldn't you send somebody to protect the protectors? I still want to know, why was the first announcement of the names of the fallen followed by the words, died seeking cover? Seriously? I didn't know Ty Woods and Glenn Doherty at the time, but I know enough Navy SEALs to know they don't die seeking cover. They may be looking for a better position from which to attack. It was insult on top of death. This administration needs to be held account, and we still need answers. Thank you.
Congressman Gomer, thank you so much for your wise words and especially for your leadership on this, which those of us who are pushing for accountability appreciate more than you know. Congressman Gomer mentioned and referred to General Jerry Boykin. We're honored to have General Boykin with us today, and then I'd ask him to come up and say a few words.
My name is Jerry Boykin. I represent not only the Family Research Council, but Special Operations Speaks. Special Operations Speaks is a group of retired warriors, all from the Special Operations community, who committed their professional careers to being ready to, able to, and willing to go and rescue Americans that were under duress. That's what we did. We took pride in it. We were always ready, and at times we even lost some of our own in trying to save others. But that was acceptable to us because it was why we existed. Congressman Gomer said, as he quoted, "What difference at this point does it make?" I'll tell you, it makes a lot of difference. It's because it's a matter of the character of this nation. It makes a lot of difference. Who are we as a nation? What are our national values? It makes a lot of difference. And let me tell you who it makes a lot of difference to. And I'm amused sometimes by what I read and what I see about how America has moved on. America really doesn't care about this. This is not on people's minds. Oh, really? Well, who are you talking to when you print that kind of nonsense? It does matter. I travel all over the country. I was in Louisiana this weekend. I can't begin to tell you the number of people that came up to me and talked to me about Benghazi because they're moms and dads. They're moms and dads whose sons and daughters are going to be in harm's way as part of our military or even our diplomatic corps. And they want to know that when they need, America will be there. Somebody will come to help them. See, there's over 1,000 people right now in northern Iraq You think those moms and dads of the young men and women that are over there in northern Iraq right now aren't thinking back on Benghazi and wondering if the same thing is going to happen to their sons and daughters because it's politically expedient not to respond when they are called? Yeah, it does matter. It matters a lot. It matters about the future of this nation. It matters about the character of this nation. And I agree with the previous speakers, Congressman Gohmert and Mr. Woods. We owe it to America to not only get the facts out, to find out the truth, but to make sure that this never happens again and there are no more moms and dads like Mr. Woods that 2 years later still don't know what happened to their loved one. It is time, regardless of who is to blame, regardless of the consequences, it is time we get to the bottom of this.
Thank you, General Boykin. Our coalition's made up of concerned American citizens, and usually American citizens depend on their political system to get to the answer, get to the bottom of a crisis, get accountability. Our political system has largely failed us in the last 2 years, but that doesn't mean there's been complete failure, because there have been citizens groups who've been concerned, and there has been Judicial Watch, which has done heroic work trying to get accountability out of this government. And we're pleased to have as a guest of the coalition today our friend Tom Vitton, the head of Judicial Watch.
Well, it's an honor to participate and to be invited to participate by the coalition in this special event today, and to be among the heroes like the Woods family and General Boykin. But the sad fact is, 2 years later, we still are not getting answers from this administration. And of course, Judicial Watch was proud to get that email out of the White House through an independent Freedom of Information Act lawsuit that showed the White House was behind the lies about videos and protests about the Benghazi attack. That information did not come from the media. It was not given to Congress. It was only given to Judicial Watch. And it was that disclosure and that disclosure alone that precipitated Speaker Boehner asking for and obtaining permission from the House to create a select committee to focus exclusively on Benghazi. But there still remains work to be done. We have not stood down. Today we're releasing documents just given to us recently by the Obama administration, again, as a result of a lawsuit, not voluntarily, showing that the administration was warned 3 months ahead of the attack that the local guards were refusing to show up and work and protect the Special Mission Compound because of fear for their safety. There was an attack on June 6th that spooked everyone. They couldn't get the militias to show up and protect the compound. And this was being reported repeatedly to the State Department from the Blue Mountain Group, the entity that the State Department first denied had anything to do with security at the Benghazi consulate. And when you look at these emails that we are releasing today and is available on our internet site, you'll see there was no doubt that all the red light indicators were flashing when it came to the Benghazi tragedy that took place. And there's no doubt that the State Department's local militia security feared for their own safety and wouldn't even show up to provide necessary protection. And perhaps if the administration had responded to the concerns that they were getting from BMG through the State Department with a show of strength to secure the Benghazi mission, Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Glenn Doherty, and of course Mr. Woods might be alive today. And once again, it's our independent investigation that continues to shed more light on this Benghazi scandal than anything frankly done by the media or to date by Congress. It remains a terrible oversight gap by Congress, and a lack of the disinterest by the media is really beneath contempt. And to that end, we filed 3 more lawsuits we're announcing today. One, I think, in July, 2 just last week, about Benghazi. because the administration continues to give us the proverbial hand to the face in terms of responding to document requests. One of the lawsuits has to do with the talking points that we've all talked about before, with the false narrative that was put out there to protect the president and, frankly, the Secretary of State from the political consequences of pretending there was no terrorism behind the Benghazi attack. The other is against the Defense Department, which hasn't produced key records about what it was doing, specifically the Africa Command, and what information it was getting and what it was acting upon in terms of not following up and protecting our men who were under siege then. And one is against the State Department, specifically the Secretary of State's office, which is involved in this lawsuit. You may have noticed that Hillary Clinton, during her book tour, talked about notes she had taken. And someone asked her, what if these notes are responsive? Will you turn them over to the Benghazi Select Committee? She said they can read about it in the book. Well, I tell you what, we're not going to wait for any committee to fight with Hillary Clinton about this. We've sued for these records, and if these types of notes are responsive to our requests about Benghazi, she's going to have to produce them, or at least the State Department's going to have to produce them. So these notes that Hillary Clinton took, if they relate to Benghazi, will be front and center in this lawsuit. But the fact remains the State Department, and specifically the Office of the Secretary, remains a black hole in terms of producing information. And so, you know, I would just remind people that these documents are out there and they still remain outrageous in terms of the questions they present that have still been unanswered. With Judicial Watch's document release that led to the Select Committee being formed, which is having finally its first hearing, I understand, next week, everyone focused on this Rhodes email that involved a conspiracy, including the current White House spokesman Joshua Earnest, to lie about the Benghazi video. But the emails that we received with that email with the false narrative from the State Department directly show no mention of an attack, no mention of a demonstration, a concern that the ambassador had been kidnapped, and at the time the State Department had information that the ambassador was alive and well in the hospital. Think about that. Our State Department produced documents showing they had intelligence that the ambassador was alive and well in a hospital in Benghazi, Libya. Yet still nothing was done to go and rescue or try to go and rescue him and the others there. There are many questions remaining, many questions and many answers to be provided by this administration. Congress is going to try to get some more answers, presumably, but Judicial Watch will act independently and continue to litigate and sue in court because, as best we can tell, the Freedom of Information Act at this time is the best way to get information out of this administration, an administration that is committed to secrecy and stonewalling on something that would have brought down previous administrations, which is the lying by a president and his officials to protect his re-election about a terrorist attack that killed 4 Americans, including a United States ambassador, and the 3 heroes we are here to honor today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tom. The cause of accountability is also indebted to organizations like the Center for Security Policy and bodies like the Benghazi Citizens Commission. And here to address you and the American people based on her work for those 2 fine organizations is Claire Lopez. Or we thought was Claire Lopez. Okay. Let me ask former Secret Service agent and best-selling author Dan Bongino to say a few words.
I'm sure some of you are asking the question, why is Benghazi still important? Well, why is Benghazi still important? It's still important because in a scene being repeated all over the United States, frankly, all over the world today, some Secret Service agent, military special forces operator, CIA agent, some law enforcement officer, someone in the intelligence community is leaving a crying wife, crying children, a father, a son or a daughter, and is leaving under the impression that he's going to do the service of the United States And if something is to happen to him, that we will do everything in our power to send someone to go get them, even if the go getting them means you're bringing back someone who's no longer alive. The folks behind us who've lost loved ones have none of those answers. Folks, no matter what your feelings are about Benghazi, if you can answer the question as to why absolutely nothing was done, not a thing. I'm not talking about what was discussed, what was thought about, what the political ramifications were, what the plan was. I'm talking about what was done. If you can answer the question as to what actionable item happened to save the lives of these 4 patriots, then the podium's all yours. You know, you don't get to determine whether you happen to be in the media, and frankly, no one else here, outside of the families, when the topic of Benghazi is over or old news. It'll be tragic news forever. But it'll become old news when the president can answer to us where he was, what he did, and frankly, why the character of the people who responded from the CIA annex to the mission complex to save those people far surpassed the character of the folks in the administration who've lied to us since this event happened. This is a blemish on what everything the United States stands for means. We're a country who's always lived by the credo, we never, ever leave a man or woman behind. And folks, absolutely nothing was done to save these people. There is a process. I spent 12 years of my life in the Secret Service, another 4 years in the police department in New York City. I assure you, the Diplomatic Security Service does the same job we do with different people. There is a process and a plan, A to Z, to make sure that these folks are not left in harm's way and that something is done to save them. I want you to ask the president, just like we are, which part of that process wasn't followed? Why'd you ignore it? And who did what? Then it'll become old news. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dan. The media hasn't been particularly interested in Benghazi, and much of official Washington has also turned a deaf ear to it. But the American people remain animated and remain committed to accountability. And to speak to that, we have with us today Brigitte Gabriel, the president of Act for America. Brigitte?
I was born and raised in Lebanon, where the life of a human being is worth as much as a dog, where our leaders could care less about whether we lived or died. I lived for the day where I can escape tyranny and come to the land of the free and the home of the brave, where leaders valued the lives of every single citizen in the United States, where every single person mattered. Every life was accounted for. Every life was cared about. I was so proud to be in a country where we have the greatest military in the world, a military that went around the world to spread justice, to save people, to bring freedom to nations. A military that was supported and backed by leaders sitting in Washington, D.C., who had values such as honesty, honor, integrity, who cared about telling the truth, who held their people accountable. When I immigrated to the United States in 1989, I was so proud to be in a nation where the people of this nation held its leader accountable, impeached president, took him out of office for lying to the public. America has changed so much, especially since the Benghazi attack. After September 11th, I founded an organization called Act for America. We are now the largest national security organization in the United States with 289,000 members and 890 chapters nationwide. When I travel across our country and meet with the American people, from Miami to LA, from San Francisco to Virginia, from New York to Florida, one question keeps coming up. We are so concerned about the betrayal, the lies, and the cover-up of Benghazi. It has become apparently very clear that the American public has not been told the truth about Benghazi. that our government lied to us and continue to lie in order to serve their political agenda or whatever they're trying to hide. Who would have thought that American blood and American lives will be sacrificed at the altar of political and private interest, where American lives would be so cheap? I'm here to tell you today that Act for America is standing by the family of those who lost their loved ones on September 11th in Benghazi. That our organization, with its 289,000 members, will not rest until we get down to the bottom of the truth. And I give you my word that we will do everything we can, put pressure on any elected official, monitor what the Select Committee on Benghazi is doing until we get down to the truth, because the American public deserves the truth, and the families of those who gave up their children to serve our country, to protect this country's interest overseas, deserve the truth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brigitte, and thank you to all of our speakers. Our government left our heroes behind, and we're going to stay with this until we get the answers about how that happened and why it happened. And now we're happy to take questions. Well, thank you very much for being with us today. We'll continue to follow this issue. We hope Washington and the media will continue to follow it, or at least start to follow it. The cause of accountability is not going away, and neither are we until we get the answers about what happened in Benghazi on September 11, 2012. Thank you very much.